Hello, just a few things about the interface here. If you once you get logged into My Math Labs and you get into the right course, this is the course for the spring. Just want to go through a couple things here that what I think are important and places to pay attention to in my class. You'll see this calendar here kind of overwhelming on Monday today because that's when I made all these assignments available. And so it's listing here basically as every assignment that we're going to go through this quarter right here. So we go through chapter 1, 2, 3, and part of chapter 8. And I do allow assignments to be worked on after due dates. So in the calendar view here, here's the due date for the first assignment is Tuesday, and in this case is Tuesday, and you can click on that assignment and work on that today. And then on the next day here, then section 1.1 is due, and section 1.2 and so on. So I just want to show that you can put your mouse over these things and it'll tell you a little more about the information. So as I scroll ahead in the calendar here, I can see when my homework assignments are due. And then we can see in this case then we're going to run upon a quiz, which the quizzes are 30% of your grade. These homework are 10% of your grade. I usually allot a couple days here to work on the quizzes. You get multiple attempts at those quizzes, and it should be like a let's see, first attempt should be definitely let's see how prepared you are for this chapter test that's coming here, which you can only do one time, and with no additional help. So you attempt that this way, and then you can then say, okay, how would I do without any help? It's very easy when you're doing homework and stuff. You have your book, you might have some other online resources available, or you might have a tutor or somebody else that's helping you with your homework. And a lot of times you may not really know how much additional help you're going to. A lot of times when you attempt on your own, like in this quiz, um, you might have 50% of the problems you're missing some information, which means that you'd get those wrong if you can't complete the problem. Now, it's not to discourage you, but usually it's just small things in each part. Not so much here in these first chapters, but as we build, you'll get additional material, and it's easy to miss some things in chapter 1 that you'll need in chapter 2. So here's a calendar to go on. Here we're into chapter 2, and so on. I think I've tried to keep all our days off school are marked in here somehow too. So, and we can go through here. You can get a pretty good idea about the schedule for the quarter. Now, I think I did mention a little bit, but I do allow you to, even though, let's say, you don't get the intro done by Tuesday, in this case when this is due, when it goes to Wednesday, you can still work on this overdue work, and I allow that overdue work to be worked on until we're testing into the next chapter. And at that point, let's say I go through chapter 1, if you have a lot of incompletes in there, it's not going to show up on your grade until we hit quizzes in chapter 2, and then I automatically go back and I take any incomplete assignments and I put them to a 0 score. So, and why I bring that up, sometimes it can be catch you by surprise. If you think your grade's doing pretty well but you've skipped a lot of assignments, it may drop quite a bit when that happens. Hopefully you don't have to worry about that, but I've seen some students go through that, like they'll start calling me or email me wondering what happened to their grade. And a lot of times that's what it is their incompletes have hit that deadline where they turn to zeros. So you can work on those and later and those kinds of things. Sometimes I see students go back and maybe if they have missed an assignment, they'll make sure they get that done so that it doesn't affect their grade, especially if they're close between like a B plus and A minus or something like that. The other portion here is you can see upcoming assignments. It kind of gives you a deadline here. In this case here, it's saying I got 13 hours till this first assignment is due right here, the next due one. I can view all assignments and those kind of things. There's some stuff mostly to do with kind of tracking your progress in this online course portion here. This announcement here, this is really good to go through. So you might get caught, especially early on. Go through this browser check. This software that's involved with this website does a lot of pop-ups, and they kind of pop up from one window, and then in that window might pop up another one. Some places then your browsers, which are your Internet Explorer and Chrome and Firefox and Mozilla and those kinds of browsers, a lot of times they block those kinds of pop-ups because they're the advertising type of things that block your content. Usually you're trying to view, right? So they're trying to do you a favor. So sometimes you got to pay attention to your browser. It'll say, hey, this thing's going to want to pop these things up. Is that okay? Those kinds of things. But this browser check will go through that, a little check on where your settings are and maybe suggest some things you can change to make your experience on our website more effective. And then this, especially this intro assignment, is how to enter answers and learn about entering answers. This is probably the lesson that you really need to go through if you want to go through before you take that intro homework. There's also tutoring services available. I haven't heard of any students using this. I would assume that costs some additional fees. And then they want to get some input from you to help improve their material here. Then this is an announcement from Pearson, the providers of this software in your book. And then I'll put announcements in here, and this is where I'm going to communicate is in my math labs. I don't use the Canvas portion other than to feed you the information on how to get here. And I'll do my videos, which you'll see here. There's a video called Syllabus, which is a link. It's in an announcement that I created on Sunday. And if you click on that, it'll go to a YouTube video of going through the syllabus of this course. And you also have a copy that was in Canvas. So, and I would guess you probably understand how to use this. Though when I make announcements, it sends an email to all the registered students with the email address that's associated with this product. So whatever email address you put in here when you set up your profile in this course is hopefully the one that you're going to be checking regularly, hopefully daily, because there might be some changes that we do or a new announcement, and also the feeds for these lectures that I'm going to record. Okay, so kind of the interface here. This is your kind of your dashboard to the deal. There's a couple different menu options here. This might look a little bit different than yours because this is a teacher view that I go through. But you can hit on homework, and then it lists all the homework. You can, as you go on, you can see the gradebook score, how many attempts you made at certain things, if there's multiple attempts like in the quizzes. And when we do multiple attempts like in the quizzes, I take the best out of the attempts, so you can do that. Notice that this is just doing homework. I can click on quizzes and tests. Now nothing is available at this point, so nothing shows up here. And the show all basically is going to just show your homework. Now if we were to a point where those quizzes were made available, you could see that, and you can find that if we're coming in and take a test and you want to find that, you could actually do it through there. Same thing, just a couple different ways to go here. The study plan portion is not active, and then you can go to your grade book and it'll show you results. I don't have any results in this one. Another great resource here is this chapter contents. I really like this version of the book, really, and you have a solutions manual. Basically everything that you have on paper is here, plus with a couple additional tools that are here that can make things more effective. So when I go to chapter 1 here, I can go to the chapter opener here for the e-text, and I'll try to get this screen set up to a way that you can see it better. And so here's your book. If you're looking at your paper book, you're going to see it's exactly the same. Here's a table of contents. I can do that. There's a couple things in here that so I can move along in the book this way, like Introduction to Algebra would be the first section that we're going to work on, and I can go through this text and I can hopefully read the material, which is a good idea to do. A lot of this course is going to be language to begin with, and when we're working with this text, though, you can get through this and you'll see things like this. These little icons here are little links to this one here. I'm looking at this information they're giving me. They're giving me an example, and if I would like to try one myself, I can click on that, and it basically opens up a problem very similar to when you're doing homework, though it doesn't count towards your homework. It can, but it's a very nice way to say, hey, do I really understand this? Let's see if I can get this done. And it takes a while to load sometimes. So I'm in this try it portion of this part here. And while I'm in here, I'm going to talk about a couple of tools that are always available in your homework too. So it says use a commutative law of multiplication to find an equivalent expression, and then we've talked about in here that QP means Q times P, that's multiplication. So I could go PQ here. It changes order is the commutative property, and so I change that order, and then I can check the answer, and then it's going to tell me something nice if I got it right. Okay, so and then I could do another similar question. I could go on and do that. Okay, and I'll come back to that here in a little bit. So here's an example. I can scroll through and page through the book, and when it talks about the next, here's another one where I can do an example, and so on. So those little pyramids are examples. Let's see if I can find an animation, which is probably somewhere in here. I guess not here. Let's go here. I'll go to I'll keep looking. Here we go. So here's an example. This is towards the end of the chapter, and see if I got the audio on here. Yeah, I can hopefully do that. That might not come through here right now. But when I have these thing here where it's called animation, it's going to pop up basically a video of and a voice of a teacher that is explaining this material. And very good resource here. And it'll so I can start and I can stop, and I can jump ahead, I can pause, I can go back, I can replay. So very nice tool to get basically the instruction that happens right around this section here. And you may not have been able to hear that. Sometimes I'll do that in class too. And which also brings up another real key thing that when I'm doing these videos, the material is very well presented in all these different ways that I'm talking about here. I wouldn't skip these animations ever. That's very good. It's probably a better, more concise. It's well edited, and there are not going to be any pauses and ahs and all that kinds of things that I do. And you're going to get real clear, concise explanation about how things work. The other thing they explain usually is common errors that happen to make sure that, hey, you know, watch out for this, those kinds of things. So you're going to get very good information about specifically how to work through certain sections of this book, which is I really hope that you use that. And what I like to do in my lectures more as we get into more material, because it's going to be, by the end of chapter 1, we're going to have a lot of language and a lot of different concepts that we've gone through. And I'm really going to start focusing in on how do I understand how to use this information as a problem solving strategy. So I put these different tools together, figure out where I'm supposed to go. And usually most students don't think about, when they ask for a solution, what that means, and we'll talk about what that is and those kinds of things, so we can pursue a goal. You really need to understand where we're trying to go. And there's a lot of times there's like 17 different ways to get there. And I really get concerned when I see students who are just memorizing technique. You'll get to a point, especially in chapter 2, and that where you start trying to memorize stuff, but if you don't have strategy, you can't memorize all 17 different ways to get there. And what happens is you'll run into certain problems where, you know, out of those 17 ways, there's probably only 3 that are really going to be successful. And it's about strategically deciding what to do, where I'm going first, and what to do. And I'll really try to focus in on that problem solving strategic or strategies that we're gonna work on as we build all these different tools together. So, and why I'm bringing that up now again, and I'll probably talk about that more later too, is you can get the pieces of the information. This book and this online portion explains it very, very well, but a lot of times they don't talk about that problem solving skill. So, and I can't emphasize enough that that's a real key important component that we hopefully you'll get out of this course. It'll help you be successful, not just in math and algebra and even the sciences. To get that problem solving skill is going to help you with a lot of things in life. And when I hear this question that happens a lot of times, mostly in high school, those kinds of things, where am I ever going to use this? Well, you know, you could say, where are you ever going to learn how to run in straight lines for short distances? And if you're an athlete, you do a lot of that. And I've never been in any sport where it was necessary to run in an absolute straight line for 40 yards and be able to get really, really good at that. And other than, well, not even track. So why do they do that? You're practicing a skill you need. You're exercising muscles that you need to do, but there's also a lot of skills that happen in trying to do that as most efficiently and effectively as you can. So you run a lot in straight lines, and I've never, very seldom you see even a football player even when he breaks down the field straight does he say, "Oh, I'm going to just go in a straight line." So that's hopefully your approach here. We're going to practice. We're going to look at skills. We're going to look at different ways you can apply these principles and become a good problem solver. And which is key is that if you don't know you're supposed to get to some goal line, you're never going to score any points. So we'll talk about that a lot. But anyhow, this is a pretty good introduction to the interface, the book, and those kinds of things. So again, keep checking your email that's associated with this course, and hopefully you put in there one. If you put an address that you check very seldom, you should probably change that. If you use your school email address, which is a good idea, that's fine to use, but make sure you're checking that regularly. So there's some other things. Here's a multimedia library. I can go in here. I could have found that animation I was talking about, doing that. One other thing too that I want to talk a little bit about here too is, let's say if I go in and I start doing my homework here, and I'm working on this problem and I'm not quite sure what to do, and those kinds of things. This section here is very valuable too. Is I can view an example about this, what they're talking about here, which will pull another example that's been worked through for you. If I click on that, you'll see basically it'll walk through what you need to know, or the steps that happen when you're going to do this evaluate expression stuff, just as if it was written out in the book, which is a very nice resource. So I could look at that. The other thing too is this help me solve this, and I wouldn't enlist this really till I get to the point where I can't figure out what the answer is. I may have attempted some things, but if I do this brings up the problem I'm working on, and then it steps through this and it says, according to the statement, what is an algebraic expression, and it's talking about some stuff. And even if I don't know what the heck they're talking about, and I can't seem to get it right, I can attempt a couple times, and then it'll say, oh no, here's what they're talking about. The correct answer should be 3 plus b. So it isn't like you hit the place where you probably are having trouble. I can make it go on and tell me what's going on specifically at that point, and then it's asking me what I should substitute in for b. In this case is 8, and I could check that answer, and then it goes on, and then I'd substitute that in. It shows that substitution, and then hopefully I can do that addition correctly and check my answer. So I did figure out a way to get to the correct answer on that. But notice now this question changed. It doesn't take that as your attempt at that problem in your homework. It'll give you another one. And that's why I said if it's about making sure you become efficient, notice that my homework score is still 0%. I got 0 out of 17 points. So even though I did get to the point of getting that one right, it doesn't count that in my score, and I get another problem very similar to the one I just went through. We went through the example. I could pull up a video on that and it'll explain it to me, and I don't think you can hear that. I forgot to turn the computers on it, but it goes through that video, that's now not always there. If there is a video of that, you can open the textbook to the portion that you're working on, which will bring up that e-text exactly where these types of problems are, which you can refer to this and say, here, it's looking at this information right here. And then the last one here is ask my instructor. And what this does, notice here's my email address, dmaher@wvc.edu, and you can put a comment in here saying, I tried this and I tried that and I still can't get the right answer. And when you put in that comment there, I get an email, and then when you hit send, it actually sends me the actual problem that you're working on. So if you can give me some details about what specifically you're having a problem with in here, it'll be a lot better for me to help you. And then when you send that, basically I get, like I said, an email. It'll have this exact problem with that. It'll be from you, and do that. And usually what I do is I go through the help me solve this. I'll save that as a PDF file, send it back to you, because usually there's as good an explanation as I can do. But like I said, you can do that on your own. And then also you can print these problems if you want. So try to use all the resources there that are available. Like I said, it's the goal here. If I said it during the syllabus video, but the goal should always be that I get through every homework assignment with 100%. Like I said, if I get this one wrong here, and I say 13 or 23 I put in there, and I get that wrong, I can basically, when I check the answer, I can attempt it several times, right, and do that. But I can also go back and I can do basically these things here and do the textbook, and I can change my answer. Those kinds of things will tell me that. Or I can get a similar question here is what I was looking for. So even though I know I got this wrong, I can grab a similar question. It gives me a new problem, and if I answer that correctly, and I put in here 18 in this case, and I check my answer, I got a point. And that's 1 out of 17. So I was still like working on the first problem, but I made sure I had the correct answer. I can do that on every problem on my homework, and so I have the opportunity to succeed on all the questions, and that should be your goal all the time, is to get 100% on your homework. Well, that's enough for this video, and I'll talk to you soon.